for joining. So you're coming to Israel next week?
Yeah.
While we wait, we can do a brief round of introductions while we're waiting for Kobe to join us. So I'm Anupam, Your Excellency Ambassador. I'm the CEO of iCreate. My colleague Rajiv Bose, he heads business. Your colleagues Verit and Shagi, and of course Mr. Hassan from Startup Nation, and we have Mr. Kiran Deshmukh, the CTO of Sona Comstar. He's one of the active participants of our first batch of the accelerator, and he'll be joining us on the panel. So I guess we'll wait for 5 minutes. Do we have news that they're on the way or they're just entering the campus? So I guess in another 2-3 minutes we'll have the Kobe and the rest with us, and then we'll start the panel formally.
Sounds good. Happy to show you all. Hope you're a happy customer of the.
So, Ambassador, have you joined in Delhi, or are you still out of Tel Aviv?
No, I'm in Delhi now.
Oh, lovely. Lovely. And we're hoping you'll be making a trip to Gujarat also soon.
Yeah. This is in the planning, but I have to still hand out my credentials to the president, and only then can I start really doing official stuff in the sense of meeting chief secretary and chief minister and the ministers here. So I'm still limited press. There are things I shouldn't do.
Yeah. Yes, I can imagine.
Hello, Nehemiah. Good to see you with us.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Well, yes, indeed. Good afternoon. Happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thanks for joining us. But in the meantime, since silences are very disruptive things, and I have this opportunity to talk about iCreate, why miss the opportunity? So, Ambassador, for your benefit, because the others already know us reasonably well, this is a standalone institute in India set up by the Prime Minister. And his vision that he got excited with was how can innovators do 3 things? 1, become job providers rather than job seekers. Second, how can innovation transform Indian industry? Because Indian manufacturing and Indian industry, I think, is probably not as caught up with the rest of the world where it could be. And the third thing is, how can the innovation be used to serve the needs of the people per se? There's a lot of us here in India, and there are significant challenges. And today, innovation does provide some very, very, very fascinating solutions. And so that is the raison d'etre for iCreate, why we exist. And so you could call us an incubator or an accelerator, but we're a little bit more than that. One part of what we do is we incubate and accelerate. So we take people from idea stage, help them with their technology, make a proof of concept. We take them to market and we help them grow and scale up. The other part of what we do is strategic innovation, where we take a large problem and then we find innovative solutions to that. And the SONA IRP thing was part of the strategic innovation piece. And the third part of what we do is a little bit of what Startup Nation Central really does so beautifully, is to be an institution that disseminates best practices in the startup domain. So those are broadly the three things that we do. So I think So I guess welcoming Kobe to our midst, a very, very warm welcome to you. And I'd like my colleague Rajiv to formally start the proceedings.
Thank you, Anupam. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste, Shalom. I'm Rajiv Bose, I'm Head of Business at iCreate. Welcome to the launch of the panel discussion focused on a really important global initiative, adoption of green technology in India. This has been brought to you by Startup Nation Central and iCreate. We have all started using green technology in some shape, manner or form. However, for the sake of our children and the planet, we need to do more, lots more, and adopt this technology at warp speed. To discuss these challenges, we have a really eminent panel of dignitaries to share their views. It is my honor to welcome His Excellency Noor Gilon, Israel's Ambassador to India. Welcome, sir. Mr. Avi Hassan, CEO, Startup Nation Central. Mr. Kobi Shoshani, Consulate General, Israel at Mumbai. And let me say thank you very much for yesterday, sir. I really thoroughly enjoyed the speech that you had at the Gujarat University. It was fun. It was lots of good information around that. Mr. Sahagicha, Head of Economic and Trade Mission at the Consulate General of Israel in Mumbai. Welcome, sir. Mr. Anupam Jalote, CEO, iCreate. Vered Mifzari, Strategic Director for Emerging Markets at Startup Nation Central. Welcome, Vered. Thank you. Good friend. Mr. Nemia Zamosh, Co-CEO in Zymacor. And
Thank
Mr.
you.
Kiran Deshmukh. Hello, sir. How are you? Mr. Kiran Deshmukh, CTO, Sona Comstar. A strong bond and friendship between our great nations has also percolated down to an extremely strong partnership between iCreate and Startup Nation Central. First, the launch of the India-Israel Innovation Bridge in 2017 by the Prime Ministers of both our countries. Taking that lead, iCreate and Startup Nation Central, we signed an MOU in 2020 and are leading the strategic partnership between India and Israel for tech innovation and cooperation. Within a few months of that signing of the MOU, we launched our first India-Israel Innovation Challenge in Feb 2021. This was an extremely successful event, which resulted in some significant tie-ups between organizations from both countries. Today, we are setting the stage for the second joint edition of the India-Israel Innovation Accelerator. Our objective is to get the smartest, the brightest minds and companies with cutting-edge technology to come together from Israel and India to meet and beat the challenges globally as one team. This is just the beginning, with a lot more to come in the future. Thank you all for taking the time to be part of this event. At this point, I would like to invite His Excellency Noor Gilon to say a few words.
Thank you very much. I would say, dear colleagues, dear mentors, dear entrepreneurs, or mainly dear friends, for me, it's especially exciting today because the first function since I arrived here, which I do as a public function, I arrived just about 10 days ago. So I hope next time to be here in person. After the success of the first batch, I'm pleased to welcome the launch of the second batch of the India-Israel Innovation Accelerator led by iCreate and SNC. This is an initiative that both countries and both prime ministers have been aiming for, innovating together for India, for Israel, and for the world. Co-created solution, the beacon for other innovators to follow. Also, the topic chosen about green technologies, of course, we all know is very relevant and very urgent for all humankind. There is great potential for collaboration between India and Israel using tech innovations, accumulated experiences, and out-of-the-box approach. We support the collaboration between the bright minds from both our countries. We support iCreate and Startup Nation Central. We believe that they have the skills and the experience to deliver and bring the second cohort to another successful business collaboration between the countries. We are proud to see, as the partnership is taking shape, that it goes along Prime Minister Modi's Make in India vision. We are looking forward to seeing the cohort results adapted to India's needs, and I'm sure that this partnership will bring successful product. Thank you, and good luck to all of us.
Thank you, sir. At this point, could I invite Mr. Avi Hassan, CEO, Startup Nation Central, to share his thoughts?
Thank you very much, and very pleased to participate in the launch of the second cohort. I was talking to Anupam, the CEO of iCreate. The first cohort is also always very ceremonial. I think looking at the success that we've had in the first batch, it's extremely encouraging and really shows the potential of what we can do together. I think any of us participating in the world of innovation understands how much collaboration and partnership are crucial to making projects like this successful. And I think what we've shown is that through the environment of iCreate and Startup Nation Central that creates the safe haven, trust umbrella, the innovators themselves, the private sector players, can actually join together towards solving global challenges. So equally excited towards the next batch just starting out. Looking forward for today's discussion to speak more about the challenges ahead.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Kobi Shoshani, Consulate General of Israel in Mumbai. Your thoughts, sir, please.
Thank you again. Welcome, Ambassador Noam. As I know him for many, many years, he's a very good basketball player, but very tough one, and he's determined to put the ball in the basket, which is quite very efficient here in India.
Mr. Shoshani, I think your mic is off. We just switched mics.
Now it's better. And I thought what to say, and I have a very hectic 2 days here in Gujarat. And I thought to myself, what is the best way to present the needs and this institute? And I think that I found that a month ago I was visiting one of the universities in Pune, and I met the two young Indians that were there. Both of them came to me and said, "We'd like to speak to you for a second." I said, "Of course. What can you do?" I said, "We are a small company. We are only 2 people. And we are making an app for autonomous navigation system to drones. And one day, out of nowhere, came an email from Israel, and they asked us to buy this app. And of course, it was an Israeli company who dealing with the battery of drones, special batteries. And they bought, and right now they are building something together. And if you ask me what I want to see eventually in the end of the day, is cooperation, coordination, and growing partnership between this beloved state, India and Israel. And this is my aim and my vision towards this institute. I would like to, again, thank you very for the invitation. And of course, just to mention, one special guy is Dr. Asaf Leo, is here, our water attaché, that is joining to this visit as well. And I would like to mention him as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Mr. Sagi Icher, Head of Economic and Trade Mission at the General Council of Israel in Mumbai. Your thoughts, please.
Thank you very much. Shalom, namaskar, namaste ji. First of all, it's a pleasure to come back, Anupam, to iCreate, to this compound. Thank you very much, Vered, for the invitation to take part in this ceremony of the second batch of the iCreate SNC mentorship program. Your Excellency, Mr. Gilon, Shalom, Be'atzlacha. I can just tell you, sir, you came to a wonderful, fascinating, challenging country, and I wish you very good luck in your term to be. Mr. Hasson, last time we've met, you were the chief scientist of Ministry of Economy and Industry, and I was in a different role back then, but very glad to see you here in the new circumstances. Thank you all, distinguished guests, for this opportunity. India has managed to manufacture more than 100 gigawatts from renewable energy as for this August 2021, aiming to meet 175 gigawatts by the end of next year, and actually to produce 450 ones up to 2030. By the way, India is like the commitment she made for the Paris Convention 2015, she's exceeding that. She's doing even better than the commitment, which is wonderful, and this is great. And I think we have a saying in Israel, the necessity is the mother of innovation. 7 years ago, our necessity was water. So we invented drip irrigation, and we made a water policy, and we grew everything we wanted in the middle of the desert. Today's necessity is not Israel's. Today's necessity is to fight climate change. Necessity of the planet, necessity of humanity is to reduce our carbon emissions and to have a cleaner and a more resilient planet. Almost all the world leaders that attended the UN Council last month in September addressed this issue. Israel, although again, being a very small country, has more than 600 different startups which are dedicated into clean tech. It can be energy saving, solar energy, wind, water, everything is there. And knowing the wonderful people here in iCreate and the wonderful people in SNC in Israel, I'm certain and I'm sure that this program would not solve all the climate issues that the world is facing today, but it will be a beginning to take Indian companies, Indian corporates and Israeli startups and to take all of these challenges one step forward and hopefully allow all of us to have a cleaner, nicer world in the future. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Adi. At this point, I'd like to hand over to our fearless leader and CEO of iCreate, Anupam Jalote. He'll moderate the panel discussion. Thanks, Anupam.
Fearless leader. Thank you so much. Sagi stole my thunder. It's a beautiful starting point that you made. And I'll just kind of repeat what you've already so poetically put. It's not just the 100 gigawatts that we generate in renewables. It's also that 37% of our energy comes from renewable sources, which includes big hydroelectric, which has been there for many decades. But yes, it does show that we're enormously committed to clean energy. But to set the context, it's not just energy. The topic is climate change. 40% of greenhouse gas emissions come from agriculture, or perhaps more than 40%. And agriculture is needed to keep us alive. Not only agriculture, the entire food chain. And about 8% comes from aircraft and commercial airlines. So put that into context. So therefore, the scope in front of humanity at this point is the production of energy, the consumption of energy, and the storage of energy. That's the entire chain. And then if you start computing all the emissions that all the various sources give, I think, as you mentioned, Avi, in the morning, that technology may have been a contributing factor to creating the problem in the first place. And therefore, tech innovation will be instrumental in finding solutions, large solutions. And therefore, the topic for discussion amongst the panel essentially is just this, that how can tech innovation between our two countries be used to stimulate the change that is needed to address the degenerating climate situation. And to my mind, change management itself, mindset change in our people, is one of the big asks. Does technology begin to address that or not? I really don't know. Does policy need to address that? Does communication between people start to address that? For the simple reason that if our food habits are to change, if the agricultural practices of more than 600 million Indian farmers need to change, then we're talking about change management at a humongous level. There are technology interventions. There can be more technology interventions, but they've got to be adopted. And it's got to make financial sense. And it's got to make socio-economic sense. And therefore, the agenda really becomes, I would say, a very exciting one, because we're at the cusp of great change. We're the generation that is kind of steering things into a more sustainable and positive direction, which is a phenomenal burden to be placed. So, Your Excellency, I'd like to turn to you for your views on what the policy climate in Israel is and what your sense is about how collaboration in this space can stimulate things between our two countries.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Israel, part of this world, is suffering like everyone else from the climate effects. We have a problem of certification, which we are fighting for many, many years, and quite successfully. We are a shore country, so everything that is happening to others is also to us, and even more. Israel obliges itself to reduce, according to Paris agreements, also reduce our greenhouse gas emissions 27%, 30% and 5%. So the issue part of the Israeli ecosystem and we always need all our innovation, because at the end of the day, we're a very small market. We need industrial partners and big industry in Israel. The strong part. So I think that of scale, of course. So I think the potential is really working on fields, work together to improve this in the world.
So your voice is breaking a lot. Can you repeat a bit?
Yeah. Is it better when I put it closer to me?
Yes, this is much better.
Much better. Good. So I will do it fast, but what I've said in general, Israel is part of the world and suffering from the problems of green technology that others are. In Israel, it's mainly the desertification, and but also we are a shore country with relatively long shores for our size, and we committed ourselves to reduce emissions by 2050. It will be 85% of the greenhouse gas emission. Now, technology in Israel in general, is very well developed, but also many people are working in the field of green technologies in all sectors. So water and water treatment and many fields, air. And we always need partners, international partners, because at the end of the day, Israel is a very small country. We don't have too much big industry. So we need partners, we need investors, we need people to help us with the economy of scale. So I think that's why I see great potential for cooperation between our countries.
Thank you. That's a very interesting perspective. So with that as the background, if we come to you, Avi, and you sit on the fountainhead of innovation at Israel, and you've been driving it for decades in various capacities. And how do you see movement in the innovation collaboration, and how do you see things from your side?
First of all, just let me echo what you said and other panelists. Climate change is the biggest challenge of our lives. It's not something that is nice to have or we should fun to use. It's something that would really affect our lives on a global scale. And I mentioned that coincidentally, just sharing with you and the audience. Earlier today, I had a meeting, a conversation with the president of the World Bank who's visiting Israel. And he was very interested to hear about, Israel's dealing with COVID. And technology was a big part of that, which is the reason I attended the meeting. And the point I want to stress that the main thing that drove that innovation is the feeling that this is a crisis mode and we need all hands on deck. And therefore, all the participants, not just of the innovation ecosystem, but as you smartly mentioned, also the users, the adopters themselves, the government and regulators, joined hands together in order to create relevant solutions. Sometimes, by the way, pivoting existing solutions which have nothing to do with the challenge ahead. And I'm mentioning that because I think we are in a similar situation with regards to what we need regarding climate change. And the second point, which I think is similar, again goes Anupam to what you talked earlier. Developing the technologies is not easy, but it's actually the easier part. And the toughest part, same with COVID here, is making sure that the technology fits the requirements on all aspects in order to be efficiently and practically adopted and used by the end users. And I think in order to do that, and this being a global challenge, global collaboration is needed. So a lot of the speakers spoke about India's position. To me, there are at least two exciting things here. One is simply the size. I think when India has taken such a commitment regards to its own activities regarding climate change, it matters on a global scale. I mean, Israel, no offense, Ambassador, we could be reducing our carbon emission to zero, which would be, of course, extremely impressive, but on a global scale, how much would it matter? And I think this being a global challenge, we need it to be a global effort. So focusing for a minute on what Israel has, I think we're fortunate, as mentioned by the former speakers, already have dozens and hundreds of relevant technologies and startups on the different fields of things affecting climate change, from energy and transportation, but also, as you mentioned, agriculture and food technology. And I think what we will need to try to do is make sure that those solutions are fitting and targeting the right markets, B, smartly being adopted and implemented in those markets. And I think typically Israelis used to look west, focusing on the more developed countries in terms while defining and adopting their solutions. But I think more and more they realize the huge opportunities that lies in countries as India. And I think in order to achieve that, partnership needs to happen. So at the end of the day, I think what we want to create here is not just creating technologies looking to implement solutions in the Indian market, but rather working together, innovators from both sides, trying to solve the global challenge.
As usual, amazingly well put, Avi. And so it very neatly brings me to Council General. And I'm wondering, large-scale collaboration is what we mentioned, the gigantic scale of the problem, and therefore the opportunity. And since it's collaboration, it's people to people, how do you see things moving forward, keeping innovation as the center, keeping collaboration as the center, and climate change as the issue to be covered?
I spoke yesterday in the university about being flexitarian and about food tech in Israel, but I will not repeat today about this lecture, but on the August 15, Prime Minister Modi announced about his green hydrogen plan. And I think we have to listen to him, because if you would like to raise the industry up, you have to think far. And I know that it's not in the near future, but collaboration and innovation in this field, I think, and we have to listen to the Prime Minister. We have to find out companies, and we have some small companies right now in not in the beginning, but in the middle way. And we have Indian company who are dealing with that, and I think it's a very good place to cooperation. Today I was in the Chamber of Commerce of Gujarat here, and they are willing and even wanted to have cooperation with Israeli companies, because the ecosystem is fantastic. And we are civil servant, but the one who run the business is businessmen, and they have to earn. Eventually, in the end of the day, they have to earn money. Without money, it's not going to work. And I think the connection between people, delegation, going up, sharing technologies. But I have to say something which is sometimes not, people don't maybe like to hear. I think India needs to find out the mechanism and the work of this IP question, because a lot of this, if you are talking about making India as a plan, which is, I have to say, and I mentioned it yesterday in my lecture, is fantastic plan. Not all the foreigners like it, but Israel is the best partner to integrate in making India. But you have to solve this issue of this IP. I think it's this is the biggest and hardest barrier for continue with bringing India to number 5 as a world production scale in the world that I've mentioned yesterday in my lecture.
Amazing. So it's a brilliant point that you bring out. Sensitivities around IP, real requirements around IP. I mean, if I create something, then I should be able to have ownership of it. That brings us to Mr. Deshmukh, who has practical, real experience to share. And Kiranji, if I may invite you to actually address the IP question first, because you're working with very, very core IP. You're working with IRP systems of Israel, and my friend Vered was instrumental in getting that relationship going. And how did you face the IP challenges, and how did you manage to circumvent it? Because I believe you've got a very stable and a very nice relationship now.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for asking that question. I think any collaboration, partnership which involves technology, the question of IP will always come. And it's about partnership, and therefore there has to be trust between the two parties, and each party needs to understand what the other party brings to the table. In the particular collaboration that we have had recently with the Israeli startup, one thing that we said to ourselves is the technology is being brought to the table by the Israeli company, and therefore the ownership of that technology must remain with them. So we didn't have any issue at all during discussion about IP. It was a requirement from the Israeli company that they should own the IP even after the mass production of the product happens in India. And we readily agreed, because that's their ownership and that's what they have done, and that's where they have, or they will be putting their resources to develop that technology, and therefore they must have it. I think key point here is that when we have partnership, that partnership must stand on the foundation of trust. Both sides need to understand the other side's strengths, and once you realize that the other side has got a particular strength, and believe that that strength is important for that partnership. I think the problem of IP or problem of any other issue that exists or might exist between the potential partners will cease to exist.
Thank you. Does that start to address the challenge? Because they found a very interesting mechanism, nothing new, but revenue share based. So IP ownership remains with the creator of the IP, and the revenue share percentage then splits proportionately according to the amount of value that people are bringing. So we found this very innovative solution to be a very interesting one, and it personally inspires me with confidence that here is a template that can be taken forward. There are a lot more questions bubbling in my mind, but I did want to invite Mr. Samoch, what he would say, what he would expect, because you're operating again in the heart of the clean tech space, right? You're making enzymes that make more efficient conversion of biofuels, and again, that's core IP based. You've done years and years of research to develop and evolve. And what might you expect out of this?
First of all, hello everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to present our technology and the enzyme core. Personally, I heard everything that was said and I agree. Personally, I believe that great changes are a result of many small steps and many small contributions made by companies like us. So we focus with our immobilized enzyme, which is an IP-protected technology that was developed over 12 years, to convert waste organic oil from the food industry into clean biodiesel for transportation use. And I also agree that the IP protection is always one of the biggest fears that company, which is R&D company like us, is worried about. So what I heard here also give the confidence to cooperate and create joint venture in India, because when we know that we have the safety, when we know that we have the long-term support and protection, it's easier to share our knowledge and all what related to the technology. What we expect, going back to your question, what we expect when we enter into a possible or potential JV in India is that we will be fully responsible to provide India with the best technology solution. And this is what we have. And on the other side, we expect to get the support of Startup Nation and iCreate to first find the best and the best relevant partner. And secondly, and not less important, is to help us with the communication, help us with the language, support companies, technology companies from Israel with better understanding of the Indian culture. Because sometimes we have a great technology from one side and you have a great potential player or customer from the other side. And then you find out at the end of the process that the communication wasn't good, that maybe we had the same interest and the same goals, same objective, but the language wasn't there, and we failed with creating the joint venture. So this is something that we really hope to find with the institute like you to help us with, because we believe that we have the solution, and I believe that many technology companies in Israel, they have great solutions. So it's only a question of to find the right partner and to help with the right connectivity. The last thing that I would like to say is that Israeli is a great incubator for new technologies. But we believe that it's very important before we deliver the technology is to really have the industrial level proof of concept in Israel. So I believe, and we believe, and that's what we have done, that first, when you have a great technology, before you go abroad to the United States or to India or to Europe, we need to have our own semi-industrial, at least, plant in Israel that proves everything. And we invite Indian players to see the plant that we have launched 2 weeks ago in Jerusalem in a waste treatment facility, where we take the dirty waste oil and really convert it to clean energy, biodiesel, that is being marketed to Sonol, which is the third largest energy company in Israel. And from there, it's being sold to all the fleets for transportation. So thank you for the opportunity to present the company.
Thank you so much. And it's so refreshing to hear clear, direct work, and I like the fact that you're clear about how a innovation bridge like this can facilitate communication, trust, ability to reach out, understand the cultural context. I'd like to come to you, Avi, with a slightly different question, and my apologies if it's a slightly different one altogether. We keep talking about innovation and technology in the context of Israel being the creator, but you have been active and you've seen what India is also doing. And my question is that there are often some technology solutions that need to be worked at both ends to try to come up with the most appropriate solution. There are many examples that I can offer, but I think Consul General himself gave a very interesting, small but very real data point with the 2 kids in Nagpur. So whether you talk about energy storage, whether you talk about electronics components, whether you talk about artificial intelligence, you talk about fintech, all of these are part of the solution that we are struggling to create. How do you see tech collaboration, innovation collaboration? It'll obviously lead to business collaboration, business successes. But you think there is a case for tech-to-tech collaboration to create appropriate solutions?
So the short answer is absolutely yes. And I'll say even more. My experience, I've seen probably hundreds of international innovation collaboration projects take place. Let me just start by saying this is complicated. It's tough. And I think the former speaker spoke about some of the challenges. But I can tell you even managing projects at your own company by 2 different teams is complicated. So when you add the different complexities of different size, different culture, different language, it really is complicated. The point is that it's worth our while, and I would say impossible to do otherwise. I think we are definitely on our side, we're at the point in time where any participant in innovation or technology, I challenge you to think of a single product, technology product, that is done by one company in one country. I think we all understand these days are gone. By definition, we need to create those collaboration. And what I've seen coming to your question is that the earlier you start the collaboration, the tighter it is and the deeper it goes. So actually collaborating on the technology phase creates a much stronger foundation and many times a better offering to the market just to collaborate on the commercial side where we already have a lot of constraints as such. So, I mean, by all means, I do not think that as Israelis we have all the answers, not even the technological ones. And I've personally witnessed throughout my career, both in public sector and private sector, the amazing capabilities that exist throughout India, both in the research institutes and universities, and also in the companies themselves, large and small alike. I would definitely try to see all combinations. So taking an existing technology and feeding it to the Indian market, but also taking 2 technologies that might have originally been developed for something else and now taken forward to meet specific challenge we're talking about. Any other permutation that you could think about. And I think what we try to do, and certainly at Startup Nation Central, one of the things we take pride, the mapping of Israel innovation through platforms like our Faith Finder database, because we want to make it accessible for partners worldwide, try to find what are the components needed to create those solutions. But I would definitely imagine technology-to-technology collaboration, where Israeli companies can leverage the capabilities and know-how existing in India and vice versa. And I think one of the things Israel brings quite nicely, not just Israel, as I was mentioning to you, Anupam, when you wander around Silicon Valley and look at some of the best innovators, they are Indian in their origin. They're working in a different hub. Obviously, they represent the skill set, know-how, and culture that they brought from their home country. And I think what Israel has done very nicely is having that culture of entrepreneurship, taking an idea and really commercializing and productizing it into something that they take into market. So I think going back to our joint role, the more matchmaking we do, the more putting relevant people together, the more showing the vision and creating that umbrella of trust, I could imagine all sorts of combinations taking place in the next few years.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I loved your concept of no great breakthrough innovation has been done by one company, one country working in isolation. Ambassador, then I'd like to come to you and say, look, if you're the diplomatic bridge between two very vibrant cultures, both very creative, innovative, inventive, you've got chutzpah, we've got a lot of drive here. What would you see as a pleasing outcome on the collaboration on the tech innovation and climate change front? What would please you? Because there's a lot of policy backing to our shared journey together. Your Excellency.
Yeah. First of all, I think that we as embassies in general have to facilitate. The private sector is the one who's doing the work. We are not there to, we are there to help in the sense of reaching the agreements and the framework understandings that enable the industry to work easier. So we are working on a free trade agreement that can help in later stages. We are working on, which also on taxation and things like that for services, which is very important. We are and by the way, we'll include maybe also the ability for changing work, or for especially Indian workers. This is a request of the Indian side to come and work in Israel. I think that the IP issue that was mentioned before, because Israeli companies, not necessarily in India, but also in India for a lesser extent, were a little bit burnt in the sense of IP and not in a great extent here. I know of one or two companies at the maximum, and there are hundreds of companies working here. So I think that this also is, that's part of the things we have to do. Once we put the business people together, I think that the Indians, and my impression from a very short experience here, Indians and Israelis know how to work together, especially when they speak the professional language, but also there is a lot of similarity between the people in the warmness, in the approach, and I think it's a good fusion between the peoples and the abilities, and you bring what we don't have, and we bring something complementary to what you have, and in this sense, I think it's really a good marriage. And the taste of the pudding will be at the end of the day of how much cooperation and business we produce through our cooperation.
Thank you, sir. Again, very, very lucidly put that at best you facilitate, you put us together, and then we've got to work the magic. I'd like to ask Sagi, you see something more on where the action is, where the rubber meets the road. And what have you seen happening at the granular level in the innovation collaboration, in the business build-up? Because you've been seeing an interesting story.
Yeah, thank you. What is very, very obvious, I've been in India and Mumbai for already 1 year. And what is very obvious is the undescribable potential. And by potential, I mean, Mr. Hassan is right. Innovation is being done all over the place. Israel, it is forte. There's no secret about it. It's well known. And so I think that is where the potential is, that Israel can come with innovation, with cutting edge technologies, but at the end of the day, the rubber meets the road here in India. And what I mean, India has the volume, India has the capabilities to manufacture, to take the Israeli ideas and duplicate and bring it, first of all, to the Indian market, which on its own, it's a huge market with a lot of consumption and a lot of capital. And when Indians see a good idea, which is always have to be in a profitable price, I tell the Israelis all the time, the idea on its own is the base of your work, but you need to also make the technology adaptable to the market in terms of price and other things. This is, in my opinion, where the potential lies in these kind of collaborations. Take know-how, take brilliant ideas from everywhere, scale it up. Where do you scale it up? Here. The Indian government was recognized in 2020 as the world's third public investor into clean tech, renewable energies and technologies. And all the big corporates in India are now realizing this. Adani is working intensively here in Gujarat. Also, Tata has initiated a plan. I think on last June, Mr. Mukesh Ambani declared that Reliance will invest 7.5 lakh crores rupees into solar energy, mainly renewable, mainly solar, $10 billion. So volume is there, capital is there. We in my perspective, as an Israeli official, we as Israel should come and put our 2 rupees in the game, meaning that technology that you need for all the renewable energy, for the solar panels, for the wind turbines, from our knowledge and know-how.
Thank you so much. Scaling up is definitely one thing that we can look forward to. But I'd like to come to Viret briefly. And in the morning, you said something very interesting. You said that there are a lot of people who are charged with the responsibility for enabling things to happen. So they make the macro framework so that things can happen. But it's people like you and me who have to make these things happen. And we are two ends of the same bridge on which innovation has to travel and convert itself into large businesses. So what is exciting you about this possibility? What do you see as happening in the next 2 to 3 years, which will fill us with satisfaction that the need of the hour, not only climate change, but other issues have been served, but a trustworthy path to collaboration has been established. So what excites you over the coming couple of years?
So first of all, if I'll take all of your words, so I can describe it in different layers. So first of all, it's people to people, and then the second is trust, and the third, it's a collaboration. And yesterday, Mr. Kiran told me married, so that it's a fourth level, and I fully agree that we already build, I think, almost all of the stages and the layers, but now the company, the collaboration between the Indian company and the Israeli company should take it for the marriage stage. And we are here to help to celebrate the marriage, of course. And I think also on the first cohort, one of the lecture in a group session told us that to work in India and to bring technology to India, it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And I think the first cohort, to create the first cohort, it's good. It was a challenge, but it's once. And to make it twice and to establish the second, it's a strategic way. And that's the way that I can see our collaboration in a strategic way for a long term in a marathon.
Thank you so much. Thanks. Which brings me back to you, Kiranji. And I really wanted to understand what worked, what in your eyes, because we're all said and done, we are facilitators. You're the doer. Something worked for you in this. What did you like? And if there are something further you might want us to add, what might that be?
Thanks, Anupam. Well, of course it worked, and that's why we are now partner with the company. I would say there are three things. Firstly is, in this journey, the first step was identifying a right partner. The partner, what capabilities the partner had, do they match with what we want? The second thing is, what is the interest of this partner, potential partner in India or in the Indian context? And thirdly, the commitment of the leadership of the partner. So to understand these, and through that to make sure that the partner is the right partner, I think there was a big role that SNC played in finding out the right partner for us. So that is one thing, the first thing that worked for this. We did go through, as you know, several potential partners, and finally we've zeroed down onto the IRP with whom we did this partnership. And without SNC, I mean, we can't just go to Israel and then try to find out a partner. So I think there is a great work that has been done by SNC, and I must compliment and I must thank SNC for helping us do that. The second thing that worked was, I think, patience and persistence from you, Anupam, iCreate. This took the entire journey of partnership, starting from the problem statement till finally signing on the dotted line, took much longer time than what businesses like ours would expect. We want quick results. We don't want to waste time in non-value added activities of negotiations and discussions and so on and so forth. There was a different point of view from the Israeli side and our side. When we start with somebody new, there is of course a trust deficit. Everybody thinks that I am right and the other side has some different agenda. And thanks to COVID, there was lack of personal touch. Otherwise, you would have face-to-face meetings, meet in person, have a drink or a dinner together. I think that helps great deal in ice breaking, you know. All that, I think iCreate was so persistent and patient. Only because of that, we could do this. This took a long time, and at time we thought that's going to break, not going to go through. And iCreate came in the right place and helped resolve those issues between the two parties. So that was the second thing. And lastly, I must also give credit to IRP. Just like what I had mentioned yesterday, this is ultimately marriage. And we need to build that trust through mutual trust. So in this particular case, the objective was convergent. Both sides wanted to do certain things which matched with each other. There was a flexibility on either side to ultimately get to the win-win situation. And finally, each side was able to understand the strength of other side. Like it was said earlier, Israeli side brings in technology, know-how, IP, all those things, whereas we bring in, the Indian side brings in mass market that we have, the manufacturing prowess that we have, the knowledge that we have of the industry, not only in India, but also globally for automotive field. So I think if both sides understand what the other side has, it helps great deal in bridging that gap. So therefore, I think just like we did, our partner IRP also was able to appreciate what we bring to the table, and that's what it was able to do. So in short, what worked well was, I think, the contribution from the three partners in this journey: SNC, iCreate, and IRP. That's what I would say.
You're very, very generous in your praise for others. And I'm sure your own approach was a very, very, very positive one, because I heard it directly from Moran of IRP that she was very, very impressed with the amount of flexibility that Sona showed, genuinely. And that was a very informal conversation she and I was having. And I do remember that the patience that you're advocating to iCreate, I remember twice when I completely lost my patience and I think I got slightly unpleasant. So, so it takes many things to make that magic happen. But we are so happy that this magic happened, because it benefits everybody when it happens. And it fills us with confidence. Vered and Anupam are inspired to work more. Siddharth gets more energy. Rajiv does. And I'm sure Avi, as he settles into this role, will dedicate some more of his phenomenal brain power to enabling this to work better and faster. I'd like to thank Your Excellency for the very insightful comments. And again, I'd like to extend a very, very warm invite to you, sir, in person. We'd love to have you here. We'd love to have you see some of the innovators working here on some of the solutions. And that would be very nice. Thank you very much, Consul General, for coming. We appreciate that. We're hoping that after this session, you'll have some time to spend and see some of the campus and meet some of the innovators. Sagi, pleasure having you here. We'd like to see more of you here. And Vered, you've come all this way just for this. I'm very touched. Thank you so much. And with that, Rajiv would like to take it forward.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate everybody in their time. Vered, would you like to say a few words at the end?
Thank you. So first of all, I would like to add that I think that one of the critical role that both of us play in our collaboration, that it's, of course, as I said, the fourth stage, and the trust, it's one of the major things, and that it's been able for us to help the startups and to build the infrastructure and the foundation for their collaboration in India and with a startup from Israel, and also to build like a umbrella for both sides in order to be sure that in the end it will be success story. So we are not going to do only the match, we are not going to do only the pilot or help that a pilot will be there or agreement. We'd like to support and be a significant business that will happen in the end of the day. And I think Nehemiah can let you know that always I said it's depend on you. It's your responsibility to take this opportunity and this amazing and unique program that can take you in the fast way and efficient way to the collaboration with India. And in that, I would like to thank for our partner, very strong and good friendship, and also happy birthday to you, friend. And also many thanks for my colleague Siddharth that worked 24/7 literally in order to be sure that every single pieces, details, and in a high quality, and also for all the team in Startup Nation Central that they work around the clock in order to have this collaboration in the highest quality and in the best result. And last but not least, good luck for the ambassador. And for us, it will be always your first time that you join an official meeting, an event. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks a lot. With this, I we close this session. Thank you so much.
Recording stopped.
If the panel here can stay for a few minutes, we've got a little memento for you to take back as a memory for your visit here. Yeah, sure. There he is. We'll get him on the big screen. Yes. Yeah, I think the ambassador left.
Your permission, can I ask something?
Sure, sir.
He has a birthday.
Yesterday.
No, it's not lunar.
Luna's birthday.
Yesterday.
Okay.
Which means I brought something from Jerusalem for him. And with your permission, it's yes, maybe I think I brought something from Israel. It's I don't know if you know one of the symbols of Jerusalem is a lion. Lion symbolizes force and power, and actually leading companies as well. Then I give you something from the Hebrew